Episode 1 has been blocked due to a copyright claim. It just so happens to be that the 2 minutes in dispute were the moments a refugee is accepting that everything taught to them in those integration classes will be forgotten the moment they have their residency papers. When Angela Merkel invited refugees to Germany in 2015, tearing up the rules obliging migrants to seek asylum in the first country they arrive in, the consequences were pretty immediate in the European Union. In this video, we will explore different articles, blogs, videos, and more importantly, facts about the European migration crisis. Today, we take a look at Norway. In the following video series, we will see why some cultures from around the world are not compatible enough to occupy the same space or area. Because most refugees have a deep cultural programming, they see reality in a different way than the Westerners, or Nordic Europeans. Religion for them has everyday implications that go from the way you dress or speak, who you socialize with, and who not to even look at. They want the law of religion to rule wherever they are in the world with no consideration for the local community and no real efforts to integrate, respect, and adopt a new culture. Unfortunately, they seem to forget they are guests, invited to have a better life inside another culture.
So Peter Sweden here. I am now here in central Oslo. As you can see right behind me here is the huge hotel. This is right down in central Oslo. It's quite a nice place. But just a couple of 100 meters down this way here is an area called Grönland, which is, shall we say, the closest thing that Norway has to a no-go zone like the ones we have in Sweden. It's probably not a no-go zone officially, but it's very much a problem area, and according to the previous migration minister in Norway, Sylvi Listhaug, things are nearing Swedish conditions there. Now, I'm going to head out there to see if things are really as bad as they say, or if it's just an overreaction. So join me as I'll be heading there. I'll just say, for my own personal safety, I already walked through there and I kind of really didn't feel very safe, so I'm going to be a bit cautious filming this. So let's head out there and see how things look like, guys. As soon as I enter the area of Grönland, I feel at unease. I notice staring eyes behind my back, and I quickly realize that they are watchers from the gangs in the area. I continue to film, but always watching behind my back, I could feel a tension in the air, and I wasn't sure if I was going to get jumped on or not. The eastern side of Oslo, where Grönland is located, is known to be one of the worst problem areas in the whole of Norway. Grönland has been the scene of mass fights between gangs, and even last year a 17-year-old boy was arrested with a bomb, so it's quite understandable that you have to be cautious when entering these kind of areas. The organization Human Rights Service reports on an internal note written by an experienced police officer that has patrolled the streets of Grönland regularly, and it's terrifying stuff. The police officer writes, among other things, that the police get spat on and shouted at in Arabic. Often groups will come up to them with clenched fists and shouting, quote, Allah Akbar, and they will get comments like, quote, police have no power here, we rule this area, unquote. And even threats of decapitation and raping his family. The police officer goes on to say that especially female officers experience problems in Grönland. Many refuse to recognize female officers and they get sexually harassed. They often get comments like, quote, shut up when a man talks, police, unquote, and other rape threats. Even the police dogs aren't exempt from abuse. The religious morality police that operate in Grönland tell the real police officers that dogs are, quote, unclean and shouldn't be in their area. So basically the religious police demands that the real police with the dogs to leave. Ethnic Norwegians were in a clear minority in this part of Oslo. I walked past several mosques, and since it was Friday, it was time for the Friday prayers. People started flocking to the building. As I stood outside one of the mosques, this happened. This is not actually the Islamic call to prayer that you're hearing. This is the actual prayer itself, coming from inside the building. They pray over the loudspeakers and they have left the windows and doors open so that everyone in the near vicinity can hear the religious service. The police chief, Hans Sverre Sjövall, comments that the problems they have in these areas consists of, quote, new citizens, unquote, and he thinks there shouldn't be too many living in the big cities. Much of the problems with crime that we see in Grönland comes from criminal gangs. There are over 100 of them in Oslo now, and the situation is starting to remind us of Sweden, but not on the same scale. From what I experienced, Grönland is very much a problem area, but not a no-go zone yet like some parts of Sweden. The Norwegian Justice Minister Per-Willy Amundsen says that his party visited Sweden already in 2009, and there are more or less completely lawless areas in parts of Sweden now. He also says that, quote, many of the criminals are second-generation migrants born and raised in Norway. Integration has failed, unquote. When you look at the crime statistics, he is correct. According to SSB, the Norwegian Bureau for Crime Statistics, the figures for crime is the following. The number of criminals among migrants are 6.7%. The same number for second-generation migrants increased to 11.3%. The number of criminals amongst Norwegians are only at 4.5%. The difference in crime between first-generation migrants and Norwegians is not huge, but the problem arises with the second-generation migrants where crime is much higher. Clearly, integration doesn't seem to have worked well in this case. So to summarize, the situation in Norway is not as bad as in Sweden, but it is clearly not good, and it's a negative development over the last years. If Norway doesn't get control of the situation, my guess is that we will get Swedish conditions even in Norway in the next 10 to 15 years or so.
Jeg glemmer aldri den første dagen vi kom til Norge. Da var det i oktober, og så var det i Oslo, så det var veldig kaldt, veldig mye regn og veldig sånn annerledes, veldig grått. Så jeg ble veldig sånn, jeg følte at det var en drøm. Men etter hvert når jeg begynte på skolen og skulle liksom finne meg nye venner og folk jeg kan henge med, så synes jeg det var veldig vanskelig. Jeg heter Lila Salsheim. Jeg 22 år gammel, kommer fra Damaskus, Syria og bor i Oslo. Jeg studerer medisin på Universitetet i Oslo. Jeg går 4. semester. Jeg savner Damaskus veldig mye. Det liksom, jeg føler at det en del av meg som fortsatt der. For liksom hele oppvoksten min, vennene mine som har gått med meg i barneskolen og vet alt om meg, og familien min som var rundt, og alle naboene som vi hadde veldig intim kontakt med. Så ja, jeg føler at jeg har en del der som jeg vil gjerne komme tilbake til og leve den, jeg vet ikke, jeg vil leve det livet igjen. Det liksom ikke det samme i Norge. Jeg har det veldig bra og trives, men det noe som ikke kan være lik det gamle livet jeg hadde. Men selv om jeg kanskje ikke opplever krigen fysisk, så gjør jeg det absolutt psykisk, fordi det sånn, oi, her bor hun venninna mi, eller her har bestemoren min sikkert vært, og plutselig så det bombing der, og jeg bare blir så sykt redd, og så begynner jeg bare å skrive til de, prøve å få tak i de. Så det veldig vanskelig. Jeg blir veldig lei meg, og så bare tenker at det kunne vært meg som død nå, liksom. Syria fortjener absolutt ikke det, og ikke folk som har bodd der, og ingen land i verden. Alle fortjener bare fred og kjærlighet, men det dessverre ikke så enkelt.
100% of assault rapes between strangers were committed by immigrant non-Western males, and 9 out of 10 of their victims were native Norwegian women. Some blonde Norwegian women have reportedly begun dyeing their hair black, and many travel only in groups.
You think there will be a backlash, a reaction against immigrants?
Clash of civilization. It will happen.
Civil war?
We don't know. I am not a prophet, but something will happen. Something will happen. I don't know, but I feel it.
The Norwegian immigration minister says, quote, "We have a big challenge now to integrate those with permission to stay in Norway, to make sure they respect Norwegian values." Close quote. When news channels want to show you the integration programs or portray the new lives of refugees, these people are hand-picked. They choose the most moderate, most well-behaved, most well-adjusted immigrants in the group. Let's take a look at the immigration programs.
This is Haugesund in western Norway. Like many places across Europe, it's taken its fair share of asylum seekers, but the Norwegians are doing things a little differently. They offer refugees what they call cultural coding classes, basically classes teaching men how to better treat women.
Norway has been running these classes since 2009 after a number of rapes by migrants in a town up the coast. But the course isn't just about rape prevention anymore. Now it includes discussions around communicating with the opposite sex, boundaries, domestic violence, and what to do if you witness a sexual assault.
Or like someone a lot. It is up to you to decide if you want to have sex.
Og det kan godt være at hun modell. Det kan
One image used is of a Western woman in a short skirt. The men are asked what they think the woman does for a living. Model or actress, they reply.
Ja.
I asked them what they make of this and if they'd see it in Syria. They say it depends on the area. Some of them say it would be impossible, but others that in big cities it's perfectly normal to see women dressed like this.
Men are discussing how rape is understood in Syria. In this case, they're all from Syria. And there's a discussion going on around what parts of Syria rape will be considered illegal between a man and a woman who are married. They're talking about how religion plays a role, how culture plays a role. In the cities, some things are considered legal or illegal, and in the countryside, not so much. So it's a really mixed picture.
The majority of people know about sexual assault, this man tells me. Any rational person knows not to do it. The difference is, we don't normally talk about it, and you do. Another man added that they'd heard about what went on in Germany, but they weren't all like that.
My name is Margaret Berg, and I'm a counsellor at Hero Kompetanse in Stavanger.
What do you think has shocked you most about doing this and meeting these men?
What shocked me most was the course I had for women, not for men, because the women tend to be more judgmental towards each other and towards other women. They tend to blame the women when there has been violent act or sexual abuse. For example, when we show the movie Nei er nei, it's a movie about a girl who's been raped. My question after the movie is, was this a rape or not? All the men agree that that was a rape, but the women, they're not so sure.
Regardless of your perspective, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of your gender or nationality, there is clearly a problem in countries that have received a high influx of asylum seekers and economic migrants. In some areas, life, as they knew it, will never be the same again, and the local Norwegians are worried about what their country might turn into.
Now, the leader of a Muslim organisation in Norway has found himself in the headlines after refusing to shake hands with the country's immigration minister because she is a woman. The man on the left here, who leads a group called Islamnet, did offer the minister a bunch of flowers, but when she reached out to shake his hand, he declined. We asked our guests for their view on the story.
What he's trying to do is push his religious beliefs onto other people. And what he's doing, he's actually not integrating. He doesn't want to integrate. The shaking of hands is just a gesture of friendship. And it's not down to religion. It's not religious based. However, not shaking these hand is a real insult.
Well, I'm not here to defend that particular imam, but I'm here to defend the right of people to choose how they practice their faith. We have in our country and Europe many Orthodox Jewish people who refuse to shake the hand of women. So actually it's something which goes on. It's not disrespectful. It's a form of respect. This is about religious freedom. And, you know, nowhere in what I've just seen
No, it's not. The
your,
handshake is not bound by religion.
Well, let me...
I'm sorry, but the handshake is not bound by religion. So why are you bringing religion into it?
Let me finish. Let me finish. Okay, it's not about you telling other people what they can and cannot say, and it's not about you to decide and determine what's acceptable or not. If there is somebody within the Jewish community, Orthodox Jewish community, are refusing to shake people's hand, do you have a problem with that?
Well, when I ran for Mayor of Greater Manchester, the UKIP candidate who was Jewish refused to shake hands with women. I was actually outraged and I said that was not right, that was against our culture. So it's not just against Islam, Mo. What you're talking about is a hand of friendship being given to somebody and it's being thrown in the face. Now, when we go to mosques or we go to synagogues, we expect to either our women to have a headscarf, we expect to take our shoes off and various other things, which we do as a matter of respect.
All I'm saying to you is you've got to understand that if somebody individually wants to express their own way of practicing their faith, whether they're a Jewish member of our society or whether they're a Muslim or a Christian or whichever faith they're from, all they have to do is decide it is their choice to do that, and we have to respect that.
My name is Adel Khan Farouk. I'm making a documentary about Norwegian Islamists.
While filming for his documentary, Recruiting for Jihad, Adel Farouk gained access to a radicalized Islamic community throughout Europe through Islamist Ubaydullah Hussain.
Everyone can hear me, inshallah? In these days, when we are living in Denmark, Sweden, Norway, UK, etc., we have to defend Islam with our life and death.
Farouk wanted to learn what was behind the radicalization of people like Ubaydullah Hussain.
It's not only in Norway, it's in Sweden as well, Denmark, UK, France, Belgium. You always find a small minority of people who don't fit in. Even as Muslims, they don't fit in, they're marginalized, they might struggle or have some struggles at home, hard time finding work.
During an underground meeting with British Islamist Anjem Choudhury, Farouk captured chilling footage of how radicalized ideology spreads.
It's generally accepted that the longer immigrants are in their new host country, the more they integrate into society. But not so in Norway, it seems. A study there has shown that instead of jobs, newcomers eventually become more reliant on social benefits than when they first arrived.
They relatively rapidly integrate into the Norwegian labour market, but then after some years, 5 to 10 years, there is sort of immigration in reverse. So the difference in employment rates between natives and immigrants start to increase again, and a lot of immigrants fall out of the labour markets.
Well, that runs counter to the experience of a lot of other countries and a number of EU politicians and even the International Monetary Fund believe. In the wake of Europe's refugee crisis, they claim that asylum seekers can be very beneficial for European economies if properly integrated. Let's talk about that now and the possible reasons for the labour market slump concerning migrants, especially in Norway. With us is political and social commentator Mo Ansar. We've also got Hans Müller from the Alternative for Germany party. Gentlemen, welcome to the programme. Looking at the research from Oslo, Mo, a number of reasons are hinted at as to why Norway's experience is different. Why do you think immigrants start off in jobs, then become more reliant on welfare?
I think what the evidence shows...
Sorry, Hans, I'll be with you in a moment. I just want to hear what Mo thinks the reasons might be.
Thanks. I think all the evidence and all of the research across Europe from a number of academic institutions and think tanks shows the same, which is that discrimination, alienation, marginalisation and disenfranchisement of certain minority groups across Europe is becoming worse as time goes on. So where ordinarily we'd expect new populations, inward migrant populations coming into Europe, settling, getting jobs, getting an education, finding themselves, learning the language, and as we've seen in Britain and France for many, many years, we have some very, very successful stories. I'm a child of immigrants, and my grandparents and my grandfather fought for the British Army in the Second World War. So, I mean, I'm an integration story. There are many, many stories like me. I'm just one of many. However, the biggest problem we have is where there is marginalisation, denial of education, denial of employment rights, opportunities in housing, health, across the board, what we see is an entrenching and a hardening of academic opportunities, of employment opportunities. So we see, for example, in France, in the banlieue, where you've got people coming from what was traditionally French colonial areas in North Africa coming there. They've got absolutely no hope. They're thrown onto the scrap heap. We've seen the same in Molenbeek. We've seen the same in Belgium. We've seen everywhere. And these become hotbeds of radicalisation and entrenchment. And that disenfranchisement and that social marginalisation and that stigma is exactly what we have to tackle. And the right answer is not to look at all immigrants and say all immigrant stories are the same, because they're just not.
And Hans, how do you see it? Because it'd be unfair to say that all immigrants just want to languish on welfare benefits. It's more that Norway isn't doing a job of integrating as well as some of its neighbours.
The question is very simple. Who is responsible for integration? Is the person who comes to another country responsible to integrate him or herself, or is the receiving society responsible for integration? I have here a very clear opinion. As long as you come as a guest to another country, of course the guest has a responsibility to integrate. And unfortunately these figures of Norway, unfortunately, they prove that the willingness to integrate into Europe, especially by Muslim immigrants, is not very widespread, and that's the reason why the longer they are in the country, the less they get integrated. They build up parallel societies. This is, of course, another reason why integration is becoming worse and worse the longer they are in the country. And I'm very pleased, really. On the one hand, it's a very bad figure, yeah? On the other hand, I'm pleased now about this study that it has been published, because we, the last democratic parties of Europe, for example, our party, Alternative for Germany party in Germany, we always have been blamed for some kind of right-wing, racist and so on. And now this study is the proof that it is not right to blame us. The migrants have to be blamed for their not enough willingness to integrate into their host country.
Okay, well, you've built a fence between yourself and Russia. It's one of the many fences that seem to be going up these days. That's to curb immigration, and it's been deemed to be successful in some circles because immigration has been cut by 95%.
We had good talks with Russia on the diplomatic basis. I think they knew that this is a security area for them. They have 3 fences before anyone would reach the Norwegian border on the Russian side. So I think they felt that this was not to curb migrants from using this area was important for them too.
Is it sensible to be building these barriers to stop people coming in who are in desperate need?
We are one of those countries that are resettling the most refugees. 3,100 people are we taking out of by the UNHCR quotas to come to Norway. We have done this for a stable, long period. So we are, even if we have a low number this year and a large number last year, we are doing an international, we are in fact participating a lot into this humanitarian crisis.
And high levels of education are obviously associated to greater tolerance of diversity and pluralism. So what are you doing to educate Norwegians to be more welcoming to refugees? Because we often ask refugees to integrate, but we also have to have populations who welcome them.
It's part of our normal educational system that you're discussing why people are fleeing from some countries, what is the convention, what is the responsibilities we have. It's all part of the school curriculum in Norway. But I think there is also a clear view that if you move and get refuge, you in fact have to live a bit by the Norwegian standards, meaning that you can't come and think that you live in your home country when it comes to women's rights. Not to be puzzled if you see two men kiss at the street, because there are gay people in our countries, and it's normal, it's part of our system.
Ironically, it was your integration minister who created a bit of a furore, because she stated that new arrivals should be very clear on the fact that people around them will be eating pork and drinking alcohol. And it just struck me that at ministerial level, that seemed kind of a simplistic approach to what is an extremely complex issue.
I don't think it's a complex issue that if you are to come to our country and you have to work to sustain your own living, you can't say no to jobs like working in a restaurant where they will serve pork or alcohol. I think you can't expect that the Norwegian society will pay you benefits if you're denying to work because of religious reasons.
Must it not?
There's too low numbers of migrant women who are working in Norway. We know that some of the reasons is that they have a lot of children, that's work in itself. But sometimes it's also because they put some demands that makes it more difficult for them to get a job. And sometimes it's because their husbands don't like to see them get too involved in the Norwegian society, because then they get a taste of the freedom of women in our societies. So it's there's also some type of patriarchy in this.
Okay, well, anti-immigration sentiment was what fueled in part in Britain the vote to leave the European Union, the Brexit vote. Now, as Britain goes forward in this, and it's obviously quite entangled in what's going on at the moment, they do look to the Norwegian model. You don't think that's necessarily going to be the right model for Britain? Is that correct?
So much of the discussion on Brexit was about the four freedoms. I said I don't think they will like it if they have the Norwegian type of model. I think it's very good for us. It gives us an economic connection that gives us the possibility both to sell our products and our services, but it had also, in fact, I think in Norway, the migration to Norway for some years from other countries have been quite welcome, because we needed the manpower.
The idea was to try to help the police, because they say they don't have enough resources. So we try to help the police with getting out to everybody who needs help. I think the founder of Finland did, because Odin was a traveler. If we see anyone harassing somebody, beating up somebody, raping somebody, robbing somebody, no matter what, we will help them. It doesn't matter which culture you come from. Most part of people we talk to when we go out, they're very positive. Always good comments, somebody gets some hugs, and generally most of the people, I think this is a good thing. But of course, on media, on Facebook, people who don't understand and don't want to understand, they say they don't like us and they don't want us in the streets.
Every now and then, every time we have a conference, every time we invite a speaker, they always can come with the same accusations. This speaker supports death penalty for homosexuals. This speaker supports death penalty for this crime or that. He is homophobic. They subjugate women, etc., etc., etc. It's the same old stuff coming all the time. And we always try to tell them, I always try to tell them that, look, it's not that speaker that we're inviting who has these extreme radical views, as you say. These are general views that every Muslim actually has. Every Muslim believes in these things. Just because they're not telling you about it, or just because they're not out there in the media, doesn't mean they don't believe in them. So I will ask you, everyone in the room, how many of you are normal Muslims? You're not extremists, you're not radical, just normal Sunni Muslims. Please raise your hands. Everybody, mashallah, subhanallah. Okay, take down your hands again. How many of you agree that men and women should sit separate? Please raise your hands. Everyone agree. Everyone agree. Brothers and sisters. Subhanallah. So it's not just these radical sheikhs then. Allahu Akbar. Next question. How many of you agree that the punishments described in the Quran and the Sunnah, whether it is death, whether it is stoning for adultery, whatever it is, if it is from Allah and His Messenger, that is the best punishment ever possible for humankind, and that is what we should apply in the world. Who agrees with that?
Please join us next time to take a look at another country in this series. Subscribe and share these videos, as this content will not be on television. Until next time.